We are Legally Sis. Welcome to our podcast.
The information provided in the show is for general informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal advice on any subject matter. No attorney-client relationship is created between you and Duran Duran-Schulze Law.
Hi, we are Legally Sis. I'm Attorney Wen.
And I'm Attorney March. Welcome to our podcast. Previously, in our 2 episodes, we've discussed about petition for nullity and annulment. And in this episode, we will be discussing foreign recognition of judgment, particularly divorce.
Yes.
Hirap mag-asawa at maghiwalay. Okay, there are instances wherein a Filipino would file for a divorce outside of the country. Or we can flip it on the other side. There are instances wherein in mixed marriages, the Filipino spouse who is a non-Filipino would file for a divorce in his or her own country. In this podcast, we will be discussing what is a foreign recognition of judgment, who can file, and what is the process. Attorney Wendy, what is foreign recognition of judgment?
Foreign recognition of judgment is a legal remedy allowed under the rules of court, especially when there is already a final judgment rendered by a foreign country and you want it to be enforced in the Philippines.
So, for example, there is already a divorce released or decided in, say, in the US. And then the Filipino, while divorced outside of the country as to her spouse, would find herself still married to that guy in the Philippines?
Yeah, actually, well, it could be considered as, well, they are already been divorced. So, but for the Filipino spouse, he is still considered as married. But the Supreme Court has remedied that by allowing the Filipino spouse to have the divorce recognized. So this is actually covered under the Article 26 of the Family Code, which pertains to the mixed marriages of the parties, and that the other spouse has been declared as divorced by the other spouse, and that the Filipino spouse has been left still being married. So,
Yeah. Okay. So what's the process? When you find yourself in this situation, you have been divorced, and that divorce is still, when you ask for an NPSA certificate, you still are married to this particular person.
So let us just make this clear. So the recognition of the foreign divorce will only apply with a situation where the parties are Filipino and non-Filipino citizens.
Mhm.
And it does not apply to where the parties or the spouses are both Filipino citizens, but they actually requested or asked for the divorce in another country.
Okay, wait, back up. What if we have dual citizens holding 2 nationalities or even 3? Will this apply to them?
Actually, that's a good question. It does not apply to them because the status of a Filipino, the law that governs is still the Philippine law.
So if you are in a mixed marriage and one files, the foreign national files for a divorce outside of the country, what's next?
So the legal remedy for you is to have that divorce decree recognized in the Philippines. You can actually do this by filing a petition for recognition of foreign divorce before the regional trial court, having jurisdiction over the local civil registry where the marriage of the parties are registered.
What do you need to prepare?
You need to prepare, one is your marriage certificate, second is the divorce decree from another foreign country or from another country.
So will that be accepted even if it's coming from the another country?
Well, you have to qualify that because any document that's come from another country needs to be authenticated or apostilled by that foreign agency or foreign government before it could be considered as a valid document in the Philippines.
So, okay, this person would have the marriage certificate, an authenticated divorce decree, what else?
Yeah, and then you need to have a civil code regarding the divorce, stating therein that the other spouse who is a non-Filipino is actually covered, or that the divorce decree is allowed at the country where the divorce decree has been issued.
Decided. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that civil code pertains to the civil code of the
The
foreign
foreign
spouse.
country, yes.
And then once you have all these, what's next?
You hire a lawyer first, though. Okay, that's given.
Of course, you need someone to file the case, a petition for you. Okay, and then how long do these processes usually last?
Well, it really depends on the docket of the court.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot really say, but mostly it's a time frame of 1 year,
Mhm.
a minimum of 1 year maybe.
So what if this person is outside of the country?
So if the person is outside the country, either, okay, so for the petitioner, he has to file it before the regional trial court having the jurisdiction where the marriage has actually been registered. And then he will have to implead definitely the spouse, also the local civil registry, and the PSA, which is the Philippine Statistic Authority, as the responding parties.
So why do you want this foreign divorce recognized in the Philippines?
Okay, for purposes of clearing your civil status, especially if you want to remarry again. So you have to have your divorce decree recognized in the Philippines. So at least your status is cleared with a PSA. Because every time you ask for, or whenever you are going to remarry someone and one of the requirements is for the CENOMAR or Certificate of Singleness, your marriage, which has been even divorced outside the Philippines, will still be there.
Yeah, and if I may interject, there are also legal implications when you enter into contract, especially when you dispose or purchase a property. Marital consent is usually needed.
Yes.
So it would tie your hands to make really important decisions of your life if you don't have this recognized in the Philippines.
I agree.
Okay, good day. I have a few questions. I hope you guys will be able to answer. My US fiance got married here in the Philippines to a Filipina. Then he filed for a divorce in the US. He got his divorce decree. Will my US fiance need to go to a regional trial court to have it recognized? We plan to get married in the US, not in the Philippines.
Well, it depends. If the marriage of that US citizen person is recognized or registered in the
In the
Philippines, yes, you definitely have to have the divorce decree recognized in the Philippines. But if he is not, or if the marriage is not even registered in the Philippines, then there's no point on having it or filing for a recognition of foreign divorce.
So this foreigner can, even if that person is the one that filed for divorce in the US, he can still file for another case in the Philippines to recognize that divorce, just to clear up his name, assuming that he has already filed for, his marriage has been recognized in the PSA,
Yes,
even though that person is not a Filipino.
yes.
So what else? What else does this person would need to prepare if he's really intent in having the divorce recognized in the Philippines?
Okay, so aside from the civil code or the divorce statute of that foreign country, you also need to have to establish that the other person or your spouse is actually a non-Filipino citizen. So this can be proven by birth certificates or a foreign passport.
Can a Filipino file for a divorce outside of the country against his spouse there and then have it registered here?
Well, that situation is it really depends. If that Filipino citizen who filed for a divorce outside the country is married to a non-Filipino citizen, yes, that's possible. So the divorce decree can be recognized in the Philippines.
But why would you do that, right? You have two steps if you can already file for annulment or petition for annulment in the Philippines.
Well, because sometimes it's easy to get a divorce in the other countries. So minimum is like 6 months anyway. And then filing of recognition of divorce is way faster than filing for a declaration of nullity of marriage and annulment.
Or if that person is already a resident of the US or another country, it's easier to file there. And then when the time gets freed up, that's the time that the person can.
Yes, that's true. Situational basis.
Yes. So what happens during the process? Does this person would have to come back to the Philippines to have this pursued?
Well, if the person who files for the recognition of a foreign divorce is based in the Philippines, well, there will be a face-to-face hearing with the court. But if he is a resident already of a foreign country, he can actually avail of the video conferencing hearing as allowed by the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So he will need to get the assistance of the Philippine Embassy or the consulate and request that the hearing will be conducted within that area. Well, definitely with approval of the trial court.
So what do the litigant expect when a case is already pending before the court for recognition of judgment?
Okay, well, he has to expect that he will have to testify before the court. Second, he needs to establish as a fact the decree or the foreign decree. And third, he needs to establish that divorce is recognized or allowed under the foreign law.
And his situation, the reason why he's filing falls under the code, in his country's code.
Yes. So we will be having a webinar anyway with respect to the dissolution of marriage and recognition of foreign divorce. So we encourage our listeners and viewers to join us with that if you have any other questions that you may want to ask us. That's it for now.
Bye!